Danielle Brooks darted through the terminal, her carry-on bag bouncing against her side and her boarding pass crumpled in her tight grip. She'd barely made it through security, and the gate for her connecting flight was clear on the other side of the airport. This wasn't just another flight, it was her chance. A one-on-one final round interview with a New York media agency she'd dreamed of since college. The opportunity could open doors she'd only ever imagined. Her phone buzzed with a flight reminder. Final boarding, gate 42. She picked up the pace, weaving through travelers, dodging carts, ignoring the pain in her feet from heels she hated but wore for confidence. And she saw him. An elderly man, hunched over and visibly struggling with his suitcase near an escalator. People passed him by like he was invisible. His hand trembled on the cane, his suitcase lay toppled on the floor. Danielle slowed down. Her chest tightened. Just keep going, her mind screamed, but her feet stopped. She turned around, sighing inwardly, and walked back to the man. "Sir, do you need help?" she asked, her voice soft but certain. His eyes lit up with relief as he nodded slowly. Without hesitation, she picked up his bag, looped his arm around hers, and asked him where he needed to go. "Gate 18, he said, voice fragile. It was in the opposite direction. She glanced at her watch. She could still maybe make it if they moved fast, but the man walked slowly, each step deliberate, leaning on her for balance. Her flight time ticked down as she helped him navigate the massive terminal. She made small talk to keep him calm, but her heart was sinking. By the time she dropped him off at his gate and made sure an airline staffer was helping him board, her flight was gone. She stood silently, watching her plane taxi away, knowing she'd just missed the most important opportunity of her life. Danielle slumped onto a bench near a coffee kiosk, trying to collect herself. The buzz of the airport surrounded her, but inside she felt hollow. She had called the airline desk. No other flights would get her to New York in time for the interview. Her dreams of starting a new life, escaping her cramped apartment, and finally making her mother proud all slipped through her fingers in a matter of minutes. Still, she didn't regret it. That man needed help, and helping him felt like the right thing to do, even if it cost her everything. She took a deep breath, wiped her eyes quickly with the back of her hand, and tried to gather some dignity. Maybe she could reschedule. Maybe this wasn't the end. She stood and walked toward the customer service desk to ask again about any available options. Just then, a well-dressed airline supervisor approached her. "Excuse me, are you the young lady who assisted Mr. Calhoun near gate 18? Danielle nodded cautiously. "Yes, why?" The woman smiled politely. "Please come with me." Confused and still emotionally raw, Danielle followed the supervisor through a quiet corridor marked "Authorized Personnel Only." They reached a large private suite where several airline staff were gathered. At the center sat the same elderly man she had helped, only now he looked regal, relaxed, surrounded by people clearly attending to him. Danielle stood frozen, unsure of what she had just walked into. Then he looked up and smiled warmly. "Miss Brooks, please sit down." "I owe you more than you realize," he said. Still stunned, Danielle took the seat beside him, her heart pounding all over again, but for a completely different reason this time. He introduced himself calmly, his voice much stronger than it had been when she first encountered him. "Richard Calhoun." The name rang a bell, but she couldn't quite place it, until he continued, explaining that he was the founder and majority owner of Horizon Air, the very airline she was supposed to fly with. Danielle blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. Richard gave a small chuckle, clearly enjoying the surprise on her face. "I dress down when I travel," he said, "to see the world from the ground level again. You'd be surprised how differently people treat you when they don't know who you are." Danielle was speechless. Her heart pounded in her chest, unsure whether to feel grateful, awkward, or terrified. "You helped me without knowing who I was," he continued. "Without cameras, without witnesses. That kind of integrity is rare." She could barely speak, the weight of what was happening slowly sinking in. Richard then looked toward one of his aides, who handed him a tablet. He tapped it a few times and turned it to face Danielle. On the screen was a job offer, real, official, and far more generous than anything she had dared dream of. A creative consultant role in New York, relocation assistance. Benefits, a starting salary that made her jaw drop. He looked at her and said, "You didn't just earn my respect. You earned a new beginning." The tears she'd held back earlier now streamed freely down her cheeks. The next few days moved like a dream. Paperwork was signed. A welcome package was delivered to her apartment. A private car picked her up for her flight, this time in first class. As the plane soared over the clouds, Danielle looked out the window in quiet reflection. She had lost what she thought was her golden opportunity, only to receive something far greater. When she arrived in New York, a team from the company greeted her and showed her around. Her new office had a view of the skyline. But the real highlight came on her first assignment, a community outreach project focused on profiling unsung heroes. Her own story, in a way. She led a team of storytellers, filming bus drivers who paid for passengers' rides, janitors who tutored kids after hours, and nurses who stayed past their shifts just to sit with lonely patients. Her own footage was real, raw, and full of emotion, and when the final documentary aired at a company event, Richard Calhoun was there, front and center. When the credits rolled and her name appeared on screen, he stood and clapped first. Others followed. Danielle looked out over the audience. Knowing this wasn't luck, it was the ripple effect of one moment of kindness. Months passed. Danielle was no longer the nervous young woman racing through terminals. She had grown into a role model, quietly mentoring new recruits, always encouraging them to trust their instincts. Every time she traveled now, she made a point to notice people, those who were overlooked, those who were struggling, because she understood that sometimes the smallest acts echo the loudest. Her story became part of company culture, a real-life example shared in training programs. One day, during a leadership summit, she was asked to speak. She stood on stage, smiled at the sea of faces, and said, "I missed a flight once, and it led me to everything I never knew I needed." The room fell silent. The impact of her words was felt deeply. And somewhere near the back, Richard Calhoun smiled again, proud not just of what she had become, but of what she reminded him to be, a simple act, a missed flight, and a reminder to always lead with heart.